Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Food News and Chews Radio, sponsored by Sullivan University, online at sullivan.edu. Speaking of Sullivan, we're going to have Derek Carty in from Sullivan.
He is a great guy, too.
He is.
You can just imagine him visiting high schools.
He's their chef recruit, chef representative.
And he presides over the Chef Shadows,
That's right.
which are fantastic events. And Norma's going to be covering those for us on February 11th. I thought it was the 11th. But that and April 14th. Cool.
I think it's just a neat program.
Cool.
I mean, it's hope for our industry, because I love seeing all the new guys come through, but just also it's just neat to learn about, because I didn't have that kind of going into culinary school. In fact, it was far away where I went, so I just showed up and got to see it for an hour or two, and then next time I was there, I was a student. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Johnson and Wales, right?
I did Johnson and Wales,
and that was at that time in.
So, their primary campus was in Rhode Island, and I had family there.
Yeah, I know you do.
But we kind of
stay at the Vanderbilt Mansions
Charleston
or
Rhode Island.
So that was the one I got accepted
to.
to. I got accepted to the Rhode Island campus.
Yeah.
And I was like all excited about it. And then I realized, oh my God, because this was right when Emerald came on the scene. And Emerald was like their most famous.
So what happened? You didn't go?
It was so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It cost, at that time, it cost as much as Harvard to go to.
Yeah, that's right. That's what some
it
of them
was
still
insane.
do. Which is what makes Sullivan, here in our area, how lucky we are to have a top 10 culinary school.
Yeah, no, it's Ivy League. If you're as a chef looking at the industry, you've got Sullivan, you got Johnson & Wales, you have CIA. Those are the ones
But has Johnson & Wales consolidated since they left?
So they left Charleston, but they moved. They built the campus in Charlotte, and it was taxes and city, incentive that got them to move. Charleston certainly was a breeding ground for chefs. Yes.
Yeah. And chef, you've talked about this before. The way the industry is changing.
Yeah.
And we'll talk with Derek some about that, because at one time you didn't have high schools that were even interested in this. You had, as you have pointed out, home ec and industrial arts.
Yeah.
And now we're into culinary. So, but what are the opportunities for young people?
Well, coming out of culinary school, I know people that have taken the paths of working for large food conglomerates, as in, they're all these big companies like U.S. Foods and Cisco. Let's say I want to order a non-flatbread, right? Because I don't really have the time to make it, but I want an artisanal non-flatbread. That big company is typically purchasing it from some small bakery that's scaled up. As in, you really are making homemade stuff, but you're selling it to a broadliner to give to chefs and restaurants like
Very
me.
similar to what Trader Joe's does.
Exactly what Trader Joe's does. And Trader Joe's doesn't have their own $2 Chuck wine factory,
right?
Or their own.
They don't
hummus.
make their own beer cheese.
They don't make their own hummus. They're buying it from somebody else.
They get it from these suppliers, these little shops.
Smaller. I'll tell you one off the air that actually locally that was going to do that and refused, because it's, as I understand it, the deals are very they're tough. They're razor thin margins, like anything in the food industry.
Yeah.
But they find places that are really good at making, like you said, hummus, and they say, we want to buy your hummus. We're going to put our name on it. And then it's like that with, what is it? Costco does that with bourbon. They buy bourbon, they put their
label
on
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so you could do that. You could be in the kitchen grinding it out as a chef, or you could be a supply chain purchaser for a corporation. Talk to a lot of those guys. You know what you do? Say you run Chipotle. You buy the chicken for Chipotle. Not one store. You buy the chicken. So... Yeah. And that was a tough job for the past 3 years. A lot of people got fired. It wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't chicken. And
there wasn't chicken.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of no chickens, how about eggs?
Oh, boy.
What? Okay, so egg prices have gone up 300%.
Yeah, how does that impact?
How?
It's been terrible.
How does that impact on, because eggs go in just about everything.
So, well, I'm laughing, but I'm crying. And I'm laughing because it's just now that the retail market has been feeling this, because retail gets priority over wholesale. We've got to feed our population. So wholesale pricing has been way up for a while. So we're talking what used to be 40, 50 bucks for 15 dozen is now 100. You know, right now it's down to 75. So I everybody in the grocery store is saying, "Ouch!" But I'm going, "Wow, this is better."
Well,
so
I haven't checked.
Prices,
can you find them? I mean, in some locales they can't find eggs.
An 18 pack of eggs, which is normally what we buy, 2 years ago, it was $1.89, and now it's almost $6.
Whoa!
Yeah.
So it's been like that off and on for a while with all the bird flus or whatever was going on, pandemic related or supply chain. Eggs are crazy. Oil, butter, cream, dairy, your staples.
Like
and when you run a restaurant like ours, Sylvia, we don't buy products, we buy staples, and that's really expensive.
Well, that brings back to the conversation about culinary education and hospitality. It's a broad spectrum of duties. I mean, you got to worry about supply chain issues now. Maybe that's even kind of new to the world, but maybe
it is new. I used to be able to order food that will be on our doorstep at Azure up until 11 p.m. the night before.
And now you have to plan ahead a whole bunch.
Well, if you want fish, you're way ahead. Yes, but and then also, let's say you wanted a delivery midday, you could get a second run. So now you're down to one drop a week, sometimes one drop a day, and then other things are just non-existent. So you have to know how to navigate this stuff, and it really takes some education in culinary school to really know how to do this.
Because this is a very complicated industry that isn't just about standing in front of a stove creating beautiful creations, right?
No. If I didn't have utter just superior knowledge of product utilization and what was out there, we wouldn't be able to stay open, because I was, as a chef, you're trained to know the ingredients and also know the substitutions and what works.
Sure.
If we can't get short rib, can we do a chuck roast? Not call it short rib, but can we give a similar dish?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me tell you something. If you run out of stuff, I'll tell you what you can put in stuff. Stuff that's not supposed to be in stuff, but's in stuff.
That's always in stuff.
Pudding,
right?
Yeah, that powdered pudding.
Right. I'm a fan.
The gelatin.
You told me to do that.
I did.
With chocolate chip cookies.
Why
I wanted
not,
chewy
right?
cookies.
And they're good.
And you said put in this pudding.
Right. Because, we've had cookie conversations on this show numerous times, because everybody's like, why are my cookies too thin and crispy? Or why are my cookies too fat and cakey? And I think we're at the point where I think we're just tired of explaining it. So the way to get it is just get some pudding mix and add it to your cookie dough, and you're going to have a nice chewy cookie, very moist.
Yeah.
Pudding or gelatin?
Pudding.
Actual chocolate pudding?
Yeah, vanilla.
Really?
Vanilla in the cookies.
Yeah, it'll give you a nice texture.
So and it's the powder. It's powder that you would put in, and to make pudding, you would put in milk. So
my mom used to do that with cakes.
It makes it almost brownie-ish.
My mom used to do that with her cake. She would put dry pudding in her cake mix when she made a cake.
Sure.
So it makes it super moist, right?
So same thing. So if you're doing, let's just say you're doing this, you have a favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe, and you're going to do this. Do you take out something, or can you just add it without having to make any?
If you have one that works for you, then don't.
Well, so you want to make it
pudding.
I would substitute, when you told me, and I don't know if you told me this or not, but I substituted some of the flour for the pudding.
Right.
And you can keep it forever, and you don't use that much.
Correct.
And which is maybe a little like Velveeta, maybe don't.
Well, are there any other hacks like that? Because
other things that go in stuff.
Well, for instance,
using a pudding mix isn't beyond a professional chef's realm. I mean, I use a box cake mix sometimes.
Sure. To accent things.
I don't really. I don't prove anything to myself or you, the customer, by getting 3 bowls of flour, sugar, and a leavener together and mixing that together. Does that hurt your feelings that I don't take that step? Yeah.
No.
So if you're cooking, I've always heard things like you can add mayonnaise to cake mix to give it a moister cake.
I have heard that too.
Totally, dude. Mayonnaise chocolate cake's the bomb.
So what?
You can use it to make the icing too.
Yeah, really?
A little bit, yeah.
So what other things can you put, like if you're trying to up your cooking game, little things you can cheat with? I like cheats.
I mean, I guess what we're talking about, we're talking about cheats, not like World War II era. I mean, have you something like a pinto bean cake or Velveeta fudge?
Velveeta fudge. Yeah. I've had black bean fudge, which is not.
I mean, other hacks like that. I mean, the cake mix cobbler is the one I use all the time. And if you just
Cake
want a
mix
quick cobbler,
yeah.
guys, at home, you get your frozen berries, you get your fresh berries. I don't care. Whatever you have access to, whatever you can afford, whatever you like. Whatever flavors you want.
Yeah.
Just pour them in a baking dish, and sugar them. I like a lot.
Yeah.
I like brown sugar, too. I like the way that kind of cooks up.
Well,
Sprinkle dry cake mix all over the top, 1 box. Melt 1 stick of butter and pour it on top. Put it in the oven and bake it for 30 minutes, and you're done.
It's
I love recipes
delicious.
like that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Unbelievable.
So
Well, see, that's the part of being a
pecan,
chef
that
is knowing
almond.
how all that works
Right.
because I don't know how it works.
I like
Right, and it
cheats.
took me 20 years to go, wait a minute, maybe I should just use this instead of, but
Yeah.
honestly, we do all of them. It's not like we don't, mix together stuff. It just depends on the
Well,
day and
you
what we're
mix
trying to
in
make.
that,
We're having
too.
fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
sometimes funfetti cobbler topping from Duncan Hines is a blast.
Sounds
Or
amazing.
Coca-Cola
You got a group of kids?
cake
Why not?
is another
Coca-Cola cake.
Coca-Cola cake.
And it's not just with baking. I like cheats. I like things. I like things that make my food better faster. For instance,
What are you looking for?
Okay, for instance, I'll tell you 2 that I learned is if you cook a chicken breast or you cook a steak, and maybe you're not buying the most expensive Wagyu beef, but you want it to taste good. So season it with bouillon, not with salt. Season your steaks with beef bouillon. And you can buy it powdered, or you can get the little,
Yeah,
the
little
brick and
cubes.
just
Okay.
break it.
I see what you're saying.
Same thing with chicken. You can season a chicken breast with chicken bouillon and make it taste more chickeny. Because let's be honest, chicken breast doesn't have a whole lot of flavor.
Right.
It's a little cheat to make it taste like it was slow roasted all day, but you made it in
Yeah,
15 minutes
sure,
after work.
Sure, and it
No,
already
he's
has all
right
the
about
spices.
that. The powder works good. The bouillon, like the paste, the base that you can get.
Soup base.
That's a really good idea for marinating meats, guys. It's really just like you're adding, chicken squared. You know what I mean But yeah, I think that's what you find a lot of that bouillon stuff in the spice rubs on the rotisserie chickens out there. That chicken bouillon powder is in a lot of products that
It's
are on
salt
your
and
shelf
MSG.
that you use to season your food,
Including bugs, right?
including bugs.
Soy sauce is one of those things too. You can put soy sauce in just about
love soy
anything to
sauce.
deepen the flavor.
Yeah.
I love
that.
using soy
Yeah,
sauce
I
in
do
place
too.
of salt.
I do
There's
too.
probably no reason not to use a touch of soy in your marinades. I mean, it's an all,
Yeah, oh, I
and it
love
says it right
soy
on the jar,
marinade.
all-purpose seasoning.
Yeah.
It's not just for Asian cuisine or just for rice.
There's the times when you're eating and you go, this is really good. It has I don't know what that is. And chances are it's a little MSG or a little soy.
MSG. I hadn't heard that
MSG
one.
makes everything taste more like itself.
That went through a kind of a controversial period.
It is
didn't
good, but you go to the Asian market and
I
you
think
get a
they've
little
cleared
bag.
it now. It's like,
Have they?
Yeah.
it's innocent now.
Do you ever cook with MSG?
I have a little jar at home, but I
Yeah.
don't use it. I need to because it's good.
Delicious.
Is it? What's it flavor?
Just makes everything you put it on taste better. It's just
really?
an enhancer,
It
like
enhances
salt.
the flavor.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
salt brings it out. MSG does that in a way too that highlights or activates the taste buds. Man, it's
That's
good stuff.
interesting.
But yeah,
Interesting.
monosodium glutamate. I mean, it had a bad rap for cholesterol and
Oh, is that what it was?
things back in the 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
80s. But I think it's out of jail now.
Sulfites too.
Sulfites.
Yeah,
Well, a
we're
lot of
on
people
salad
thought
bars.
that
yeah.
back in the day they would get heartburn from eating Chinese food, and they always
And
swore
we
it
said
was
it was
MSG.
MSG.
And it turns out that was just an old wives' tale. It doesn't really. I mean, in rare instances, you can be allergic to it. Like you can be allergic to
Sure,
anything.
sure.
But for the most part, people were just
Well,
overeating and
in the
getting
same era, sulfites were, and I don't know where that ended up, but I know people would blame that on getting sick after eating at a salad bar.
So as I understand it, the monosodium glutamate, the glutamates are just protein strands, and they're synthesized. They're in soy
Sure.
sauce, and they're in 1,000 other things. They just happen to be concentrated in MSG.
Interesting.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
all
integrating a lot
right.
of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we got about
So-
2 minutes before we
Chef.
talk to Derek Carty of Sullivan University.
Brasabana.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I got a good dinner for you guys to sign up for if you're looking for. Well, I guess we call it the Feasts of Sunlight in the first quarter.
Oh,
the
yes,
dark,
we need
gloomy
that in
January.
January.
Right? So we're doing
January
Brasa-
31st, right?
Yes, we did it last year. We're doing it again this year. You're probably going to see it again next year, but don't wait a year. So we got Brasabana, our old Cuban restaurant. We're featuring their food at Azur restaurant. This menu is $55 a person, but it's a fun event. So check out all
The
you get.
menu looks wonderful.
Right. You're going to start at the table. It's going to be shared because, Latin food, tapas, sharing. And we're going to do empanadas, papareñas, island chips, Cuban guacamole, pico de gallo, and shrimp ceviche on a platter for every table. You guys get to sit and mingle and sip on mojitos, caipirinhas, and mezcalritas while we prepare your first course, which has actually been cooking for a long time. It's Puerco Brasabana, where we take basically pork butt, and we marinate in sour oranges and lime juice and tons of garlic and cumin for about a day, and then we slowly roast that until it's just shredding apart.
I love that.
The grease is just seeping out, and then we take it. It's all shredded and moist, but we put it on the flat top, the plancha, and it sears hard like a crispy, crusty hash brown cake of meat. Kind of, right?
I used to order that all the time.
Just pour lime and lemon juice on it and sear it up with peppers and onions, and it's shredded. And we're going to put that with a little bit of sweet potato and ancho chili queso. So that's your first course. One of our the most popular dish at Brasabana was that one.
Yeah, that was my go-to.
Our second most popular dish is the classic ropa vieja. And I'm just not going to do a Cuban dinner without making that. So old clothes, we talked to Old San Juan about this one, but come and try ours. We're taking a whole mess of skirt steak and putting it in a cauldron and just boiling it for a day until it shreds up like old clothes, those, fine shreds of meat that are still moist, and good, but it kind of looks like shredded hay. To that, we'll add caramelized onions and peppers. I usually add, a few little secrets in there, but it's a tomato-based sauce, and it simmers down for 5 or 6 hours. And that's going to be over just beautiful saffron rice, Cuban black beans, ripe plantains. Your quintessential classic Cuban meal. It's the one that's going to hit home, if you know what I mean. And then what would be, would be proper? We're going to do tres leches cake.
Yeah, gotta have it. Gotta have it
for dessert.
I love that.
That's my favorite dessert.
So we got cocktail specials tonight, mojitos, caipirinhas, all the thing. Great Cuban food. It's January 31st, so it's right around the corner, guys. Tuesday, January 31st at 7 p.m.
Just before the groundhog comes out.
Right. The last day of the month.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of sunlight for the last day. Get your reservations, 859-296-1007. We are securing this one, so buy a ticket, guys. Call.
Back in a moment. When we come back, we're going to talk to Derek Carty of Sullivan University.
And they are our partner.
They are.
At Food News and Chews.
That's right. And we're going to find out how, if you or someone you know wants to get into the culinary field, how to do it. Back in a moment. Food News and Chews Radio. Everybody, welcome back. It's Food News and Chews Radio, brought to you by our friends at Sullivan University. And speaking of Sullivan University, someone we've had on the show before who does something that I'm so jealous of, because when I was in high school this didn't exist, is recruitment for culinary programs at Sullivan. His name is Derek Carty, and he gets to go around and tell kids and cook for kids, and I say kids, but young adults really, and tell them about the world of culinary possibilities. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Shadow.
Absolutely.
And you got one coming up.
Absolutely. February 10th.
So you're like a general war hero to me right now. Like
I'm on
going out
the front
there,
lines.
The one on the front lines, rounding up the new troops.
And that's a Friday, right?
It is a Friday. Yeah, I think they are always on Fridays, just because
there's
it's plus
like
Friday.
an April 14th one as well.
April 14th. Yep, that's the next one.
Yeah.
So, Chef Shadow, we've talked about it quite a bit on this show. We've
Norma's done quite a bit of work with it. She does a great job interfacing with all of that and working with Derek on Chef Shadow and Chef Shadows.
Right. So we've had kids go to it. We actually have one kid, I say kid, young man, working at Azure in high school, which is something that happened during the pandemic. I was looking for just a part-time thing, and I usually never reached out to a high school student, but if a kid that age reaches out and say, hey, I really want to be a chef, and writes a page-long letter, you're going to give them a chance,
Dude,
right?
I remember when I was in high school going around to restaurants, literally knocking on doors and saying, hey, I'll work here for free if you'll teach me.
Right.
Not knowing that was the way a lot of people did. Someone wrote you a letter?
Yeah, he wrote a letter wanting to come in and learn. So, I mean, I think that's the kind of kid you're looking for,
Absolutely.
Right there. That's what Sullivan wants.
And what year is he in?
He's a junior in high school.
And
he's only allowed to work so many days a week and such, but to get his hands wet in industry, he's just absorbing it. I guess my question was to people out there, if if you know a young man or a woman interested in culinary arts, this is the show to listen to.
And do they have to be seniors?
They do not have to be a senior, no. As far as I know, there's not much of a age cutoff. We would take a freshman. It's never too early to plant the seed.
So what's it like? Because when I was younger, we didn't have culinary programs in school, and you were just saying off the air that pretty much all but one high school in Lexington has a culinary arts program.
Yeah, to my knowledge, everybody but Frederick Douglass has one. I meet some of those guys at like college fairs and stuff. I'll set up a booth and they'll come. So I've met some Frederick Douglass.
See, I didn't realize that was going on. I think over the past 10 or 15 years, I've worked with Southside, who has kind of a technical program.
Right.
But
Seeing them tomorrow.
You're seeing them tomorrow, and it was fantastic too. I mean, it was a working kitchen. Those guys cooked me dinner one night, That being said, Derek, like, when did these high schools start bringing in fully operating kitchens and starting to teach culinary? Because back when I was in high school, I think they had the last reminiscence of what we called home economics.
Yeah, right.
And maybe did they evolve
industrial
it into
arts for the boys and home economics for the
exactly.
girls.
It really I think it just happened in the last like 10, 15 years. It's still like transitioning. A lot of times I get to a high school and there's people in there measuring. They're like, we don't have a commercial kitchen yet, but we're going to get one. Like, they're working on it right now. So there's still some of those, like, partitioned 4 or 5 small residential kitchens, like with a, residential stove and stuff. But then sometimes you get in there and there's, like, a full gas range and like,
wow, that's amazing.
Steamers and all those shams and everything.
How did you get such a neat job?
So Sullivan
Where'd you come
called
from?
me.
Yeah, well, why?
Yeah. What
What
you
attracted
need to
them to
know
you?
about Sullivan is after you graduate, they have lifelong career services. And so they will call you. I didn't even know
So
this
you
was a
graduated
job.
in culinary.
I did. I went to Sullivan about 10 years into my career. So about 10 years ago. And, yeah.
And you were a chef.
Absolutely.
And where did you
Still
chef? Here in the
Everywhere.
area?
So I did spend about 6 years in Philadelphia. So some restaurants up there.
good stuff up there, man. Jose
Absolutely.
Garces,
I did do a
Georges
Steven Star
Perrier.
restaurant and had my own place and just all kinds of stuff. And then I had a place on Short Street for a beat where Jonathan is now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I was at that spot. Cooked for Scottie Pippen a couple of
Nice.
times. He came in a couple of times. He was trying to invest in that restaurant, so he came in a couple of times. But that was probably the coolest person.
Do you like this? Because it's different from being a
Oh,
chef.
I love this. This is probably my favorite job in the industry I've had. I find like meeting students really rewarding, and I get to talk about food and get them while they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
So this is an important conversation, I think, to talk about, Sylvia. We talk to restaurants and chefs a lot and people in food service, myself, but entering into the culinary industry does not mean you're locked into working in a restaurant. I mean, this field is absolutely exploding
fast.
in so many different
And
venues
that's
and
right.
ways. It doesn't, the days of having, I guess the normal path would have been graduate top of your whatever at culinary school, go to the top restaurant, go to the next 3 top restaurants for 10 years until you're worn out, and then grow it if you can make it in your own place once you build your reputation. But you don't have to do that anymore. There's facets. I mean, the amount of ghost kitchens I've seen open in this year alone that just do catering, delivery, they service wholesale suppliers. The everyday grind of the restaurant does not have to be a path for a chef. You can still cook.
Private chefing.
Done that.
There you go.
And that's a whole different animal,
It's
right?
hard too, though.
Yeah.
It is hard.
I mean, so I spent 5 years as the chef at a sorority in UK.
Yep.
So
Whoa, what a job! We'd love to
That's
hear
interesting.
We'd love to hear the stories about that one.
Would you? I don't know if you would. But there's consultation. You can consult for big brands that want to get into culinary.
Corporate chefs, like executive.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's
food service kinds of things.
I don't say it blows me away, but it makes me happy that a long time, not even a long time ago, when I was in high school, you were in high school in the late 90s. If you want to be a chef, no one knew how. It's like there's a guy in a white coat with a French accent and a huge hat, and I don't know how to get to there. Right. And then the Food Network blew up, and then we saw Emerald, and it kind of demystified how people got into the culinary arts. It kind of made it brought it in, and say what you will about the Food Network, but it brought it into your homes and said, no, I can do this. Anyone can do this.
Now, these young people come in and they do the chef shadows. And now that you're back in business because of the pandemic being over, you can bring them back. I went to the last one. And what do they do after that? Because you've got like a couple of degrees in pastry, associative science.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the career paths that they can take with Sullivan.
So there's an Associates of Culinary Arts, and there's also an Associates Baking and Pastry, but we can go all the way up to Masters. You can get your MBA with us.
Or hospitality, you can
and
go.
we have doctorates. I mean, we really
cover
the whole
whole thing.
it all. Yeah,
the whole thing. And so there's like a couple, and then there's some kind of I read a certificate.
There
something?
is, yeah. If you just want the cooking classes and you don't want the foundation
like
for
maybe
like
an older
actual
person.
degree,
Yeah.
And which that's who I generally point that towards.
Yeah.
Is like people later in life that are just like, I just want to learn how to cook. There's a 6-month certificate. It's nothing but the culinary labs.
Well, that could be popular.
That's a pretty cool thing. You know, when I went to culinary school, there was one other person, and he was a .com millionaire.
Wow.
You know, he's done, retired, sold his company. And I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just here to learn to cook for myself for the rest of my life. You know, I don't have to work anymore. I'm like, this is awesome.
I run into that a lot, mostly at college fairs, because when the parents are with the students walking around, and they're like, okay, well, he's not interested, but I am.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, let's talk.
What if you want to have the, if the sorority job is taken, the second best job would be, have you guys ever seen the show Below Deck, where you cook on the fancy yacht? These yachts have their own private chef crews, and they just like travel the Mediterranean. Like you saying, there's a lot of ways to cook without working in a kitchen.
Even on the big boats. I mean, on cruise liners.
Sure.
Yeah.
Disney will pull you out of school and take you right on a boat ride as quick as you want.
And we at Sullivan still have a great relationship with Disney. Yeah. We will send them for our externships all the time if a student wants to go down there.
Yeah, well, this culinary school is like in the top 10.
Oh, yeah.
Nationally. Yeah. This is pretty awesome, guys, right here.
Yeah.
It's really a breath of fresh air. I mean, I've talked to other chefs in other regions right now, and it's a real struggle having Sullivan pumping out talented young chefs to, one, the whole town tastes better. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. I mean, 15 years ago, this was a corporate wasteland, really. Now we have stuff.
And Chef wants to hire every one of them.
Yes.
Is that everyone you run into? Does every chef you run into go, hey, do you got any names? You know anyone you can throw them up?
Absolutely.
Is it still like that?
Weren't we just talking about that? We were just talking about it right before we came in here. You know anybody for this?
Oh, that's funny.
So I got a kind of a serious note to this, because our industry got pretty bad rap past few years in terms of what we can provide and what we do and how it is for employees and people coming into the industry. And I find that when I'm talking to, there's a lot of interest in coming in. People are really, young people are desiring to do this. But the days of the way Derek and I did it are pretty much gone. And I don't know about you, Derek. Looking at the curriculum and the way it's changing, things are going to more automation in some senses. Some of the old school 12-hour demi-gloss, stock producing kitchens are not really feasible anymore because people don't want to work that much. No. But there are ways to balance this out, right? And have a draw towards a kitchen.
Yeah, you're not going to see people staging anymore, probably. Not around here.
Right, that would be a 4 or 5 day unpaid work week, really, just to try you out to see if you can hang in the kitchen, and that's just not really the case anymore.
You also see that in general, internships are. It used to be, come here, work for free for a while. We'll call you an intern, and the government kind of said, no, you can't do that. That's not really that. So now you see more paid externships, more paid internships, and you still get experience, but you're also making a little money on this, while you're doing it.
Yeah. Do you miss being a chef? Do you miss it? Do you cook?
And I say that I love cooking, and I get to cook every day, so I'm still a chef.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm a chef that gets to talk to students.
You mean you go in? That's the process. You go in and you cook with them.
And
what do you do?
I do a cooking demo, and I will walk them through what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. and I pepper in Sullivan facts throughout. And then I am like, who's interested? And I get a bunch of names, and I take them back.
Yeah.
And we enroll them.
How many young people, and what's your region cover? Yeah.
I am covering all of eastern Kentucky, dipping into West Virginia. And I've been up north to Ohio, and I might go down to Tennessee. I'm gonna go as far as I can.
Yeah.
They didn't say you can't go there, so it kind of just let me loose.
Is one of the main, I don't say selling points, but it's one of the main benefits of it that if you're in high school and you want to be a chef, you want to get into cooking, if you go to college, nothing wrong with college, but you're talking about a 4-year dedicated, and you're going to do a lot of things that don't have anything to do with what you do.
Yeah, not in our program.
Right. Sullivan, you can enroll today, and you can be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, you could be in the workforce, right?
Oh, yeah. You can have an associate's degree in 18 months, and so...
That's great.
Quick.
That's
a
a
bachelor's degree in as little as 3 years.
That's a good thing to
a whole year
clarify, because when I was going in, the one contention my family had was this wasn't like a degree, but Sullivan is a university, and these are associate's degrees, and they do have curriculum. Your core curriculum's still there. It's just you major in culinary.
And Chef, I know you went to culinary school, but then you went on to UK to get a hospitality degree, right? So you can do that at Sullivan. They have the hospitality, which adds on to the culinary education, right?
Correct. I believe at the time, I had an associate's in culinary, so I was going for a bachelor's degree, and a lot of things transferred. It didn't make it. It was a pretty cut and dry process, as anybody's path would be from going associates to bachelor's. So, but no, I didn't do the culinary bachelor. I did hospitality management with business minor, but that just kind of added to the culinary. So there's and Sullivan has all of these paths.
Yeah, they
Absolutely.
do.
We've got about a minute and a half, but let me ask you, what other than the actual cooking part of it? Because if you're a chef, a sous chef, cooking is your life. But for like Jeremy, you run the restaurant. It's your restaurant, guys. You have to run everything. So other than the actual cooking part, what can the students pick up at Sullivan that would help them in their cooking career?
Oh, how to not lose their shirt running a business.
Yeah, there you go.
Food and beverage.
Number
cost
one.
control and menu pricing and all that. I'm sure.
Important stuff you can't really learn just by cooking.
No,
Cooking is
exactly.
the easy part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure Chef can tell you that he's an electrician sometimes and an HVAC guy. I mean, you own that building.
I
you
have
need
both
to do
hands
what
in
you
a
can
toilet
to-
this morning,
Yeah.
fixing
You're
that.
a plumber.
And then he washed them. He washed them.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Part of being a
But you
homeowner, business owner, whatever.
Any business. I mean, when you're in any
Yeah.
business, the one thing, you might be a great plumber, but if you don't know how to run a business, business is not going to work. It's like that with cooking, with restaurants, with anything. You have to learn
it's so
more.
competitive now.
Yeah, they set you up for success.
Yeah.
How to
That's a great way to
conceive
put
a
it.
menu,
Yeah.
why people do anything they do. They really cover their bases. I was so well equipped after I left there, and I knew every chef in town. So
I agree. That's the
networking
connections
is
are
huge.
golden, and you come out with such a solid foundation. I
Yeah.
mean, you are light years ahead of anybody off the street, or even there's guys out there with 10, 15 years experience that are probably thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to culinary school. You're going to come out like on par with 10 to 15 levels of experience. Now, you have to learn to execute on a line, but the knowledge level's there.
Well, 'cause part of it, when you're looking to hire someone, if they have no experience at all, you don't really have the time to train them, right? I mean, in very rare instances, can you spend a lot of time?
You take advantage. I mean, I've worked with Sullivan guys so long, I take for granted what they know. If I say, hey, I need a beurre blanc and go get some shiitake mushrooms, well, they're reducing white wine and shallots, and next thing you know, they get the shiitake mushrooms. Other guys are like, what's a shiitake mushroom? And then what do you say, bro?
Tell people how to get in contact. If they're interested in the program or they just want to know more, get more information, how do people find you and find Sullivan?
yeah, so to find Sullivan, just sullivan.edu online. To contact me, and please do if you're interested, it's dcarty@sullivan.edu. And reach out with
There you
any
go.
Young
questions.
person, not necessarily a young person, just curious.
And how many people do you accept into a chef shadow?
I believe it's 25.
Okay. Yeah, around there.
99% sure.
Yeah, ish.
Just because it's my job to know these things doesn't mean I do.
Numbers. No one said to be math. Derek Carty of Sullivan University.
Great to see you.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you again.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank
having me.
you.
You're very welcome. Back in a moment. Food News and Choose Radio.